Welcome everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to make light or shadows damage you in Unreal Engine. Let's get to it. I'm going to start with the third person template. It doesn't really matter which one you use. Now I'm in my blank project. What I want to do first is give the character some health, because without it he can't take any damage from the light. So what I'm going to do is create a new blueprint. I'm going to create an actor component. I'm going to call it health component. What we want to do with this health component is we're going to set up the logic for taking damage, regenerating your health, death, and the variables you'll need for this is max health. That will be a float. We want current health, also a float. Can regen. That's going to be a boolean. You want regen delay. That's going to be a float. We want regen amount. And we want regen interval. These are all going to be floats. We also want one event dispatcher called death. We're going to call that one health hits 0. First thing we're going to add to this blueprint will be a custom event. We're going to call it apply damage. We also want to add one input to this event. We're going to call it damage amount. And that's going to be a float. Now, from the execution pin, we're going to set the current health. Then we're going to get the current health. And we're going to subtract it by the damage amount. Let me clean that up quick. Then we're going to clamp this. Make sure you use clamp float. This will make sure the health doesn't go underneath 0 or over the max amount of health. And from this, we're going to plug that into there. And we're going to have a branch, which you can do by holding B and then clicking the mouse button. And the condition will be less equal. So if your current health is less than or equal to 0, if that's true, we're going to call death. Then we're going to search for a node called clear and invalidate timer by handle. We're going to plug that in there and just want to promote this to a variable for now. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it regen delay timer handle. And we're going to just copy and paste that and set this one to a variable as well. Just call that regen timer handle. I'll explain about these a bit more in a second, but for now you just want to copy and paste them. Plug this into the false branch, and then you want to use this node called set timer by event, and then you want to set the delay timer handle into this, and from the time you just want to make that regen delay. In this event pin, we drag from this and just create a custom event. We'll call that regen delay over. Now, every time this is fired, it will play this event after 3 seconds have gone. And every time you clear it, it will set this back to 3 seconds. We also want to set can regen to false after the player died, so the player doesn't get any more health after they die. And from this event, I'm just going to clean it up first. We also want another set timer by event. The time on this one will be regen interval. We're going to set the regen timer handle from here. But then we're going to set can regen to true. And then we're going to create another event from this node. We're going to call this one heal. Oh, sorry, custom event. Name it heal. Clean it up. Now this is going to be looping, so you'll continuously heal until it's cleared by taking damage or dying, or until your health is full. And now we're going to create another branch. We're going to make the condition whether you can regen or not. And if you can, we're just going to take this code, copy it, paste it. I'm going to plug it into true. So if you can heal, instead of subtracting, we're going to add the regen amount to the value that we're going to set the health to. And we're done with this. Now we're going to go to the character blueprint to test that this health component actually works. We're going to get there through third person, blueprints, character. And what we're going to do is, in the top left corner, there's an add button. I'm going to type health component from here, and the thing we made should just appear. We drag off, and we want to get the current health. So get current health. And we want an event tick, only just to test that this actually works. We're not going to keep it. So we're going to get a print string. And I'm just going to plug that into there. And then I'm going to test that damaging works by, I'm going to use the G key. Every time I press the G key, I'm going to apply damage. Not this one. You want to use apply damage from the health component, which is this event that we made. So when we press this, I'm just going to apply 20 damage. Save the project, compile. Now when I go into the game, it should work. See, it prints 100 in the left corner. And every time I press G, it should take away 20. And if I wait 3 seconds, yep, the health regens. If I press G again, the regen stops. I'm going to keep pressing G until I'm dead. 0 health. Shouldn't regen anymore. Okay, that's good. Now I've got this working. I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to create one variable called light damage. This is basically going to be, if it's true, light will hurt you. If it's false, stepping in shadows will hurt you. I'm going to leave that true for now. And I'm going to create a health bar, so you can actually see how much health you have. You can do that by user interface, widget blueprint, use widget. I'm going to call that WBP health bar. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to use a canvas panel. Just drag that into the scene. And this represents the player's screen. I'm also going to add a progress bar, which will be the health bar. I'm going to resize it to be a bit bigger. I'm just going to put it in the top corner. I'm going to anchor it to top left. To start, I'm going to go to the graph in the top right corner, and on variables, I'm going to create one variable called character reference. And this will be a BP underscore third person character object reference. Using a different character, you'll just type that character's name, and then it'll be an object reference. And then it's going to be instance editable, and it's going to be exposed on spawn. Now you've got that set up, you can go to the designer, click on the bar, and where it says %, you want to click this button and create binding. This will, the number returned in here will represent the amount of % that this bar will show. So in this function, you want to drag off the character reference. Then from the character reference, you want to get the health component here. Then you want to get current health. and max health. And you want to divide the current health by the max health. That will show you the percentage of how much health you have. So in the character, you want to get the begin play node. And from the begin play, you want to create widget. And this widget will be the health bar that you just created. Now the character reference will be get reference to self. So it's you, that's the character. From return value, you want to do add to viewport, which will actually add it to the screen after you create it. Another thing you want to do after this is you want to drag off the health component and you want to do bind event to death. That plugs into there. And you just want to create a custom event from here. Just call it death event. So once the health component knows that you're dead, it will fire this and you can create the functionality for the death here. For this character, all I'm going to do is get the mesh, set simulate physics to true, just so when the character dies, it will ragdoll. And from the mesh of the character, if you want to do this, collision presets, you just want to change that to physics actor, and it should work. And then after a delay, we're just gonna, for this tutorial, we're just gonna reset the level. But for your use case, you'll probably want something different. I'm just gonna open level by object reference, third person. We actually want to add the damage functionality back, just to test that this works. Take 20 damage again. Compile, make sure you save. Now, every time I press G, see that the health goes down and it goes back up. When I die, the character ragdolls and it should reopen the level. Yep, it works every time. There we go. So now I can get rid of that finally. One more thing I want to add to the widget is to let the player know whether light or dark will hurt them, or light or shadows. So I'm just going to add some text. I'm going to say, stay out of, and I'm going to add another bit of text. And I'm going to bind the text to character reference, light damage, get that. And then from this, we're going to use a select node. Select. There we go. Plug the index into this. Okay, and from the false node, we want to make text, make literal text, and I'm just going to type shadows. So if light damage is false, it will be shadows. If light damage is true, it will be light. I'm just going to plug that into there. And plug that into there. And now, it should change. And now, I'm going to add a quick binding, which when I press the 1 key, it will do a flip-flop. So every time I press it, it'll do that one. If I press it again, it will do that one. I'm going to set light damage. I'm going to set that to false the first time. If I press it again, it will set true. Now I can test that in the game. See? Every time I press 1, it changes. Now we're almost ready to add the lights to the game. But before I do that, I'm going to make a more interesting level where it'll be easier to test these mechanics, because this level isn't very good for that. think this will do for now. It doesn't really matter what you make, as long as there's shadows that you can actually stand in. I'm going to start by going back into the third person blueprint, and I'm going to go to the viewport actually. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set points to the character that the light will actually trace to. So if you press add with the mesh selected, I'm just going to type scene. It's just basically an empty point in space that's just saved. And for each one, I'm just going to set this one at the head. Then I'm going to name it head cast point. Then I'm going to copy that, put it down a bit. Just going to call that torso. You can create as many of these as you want. I'm just going to create 4 of them. This one's going to be called pelvis. I'm going to copy that one. This one's going to be called feet cast point. Now if I click all of these, you should see that they're all different. There we go. And to make this easier, if you want to add more in the future or take away some, I'm actually going to create a variable called all cast points. And this is going to be a scene component object reference. And if you go into the right corner, it'll be an array instead of single. So it's going to be an array of scene components. I'm going to move on to the construction script now. It'll be in the top. And I'm going to drag in the mesh. I'm going to do get children components. This one. And from that, I'm just going to set that to all of the cast points. So everything that's inside of this mesh will be set into this. So once you've completed this, ready to move on to the lights, I'm going to do this by creating an enumeration. So you right click the content bar and you just search enumeration. And I'm going to name that enum light types. We're going to go into that and add enumerator. This one's going to be directional, which is going to be the sun. This one, I'm going to add another one called point for point lights and one more for spotlights. Then we're going to move on to the actual light blueprint. So it's going to be blueprint class actor, and I'm just going to call this light damager. I'm going to go into this and keep the default scene route. I'm going to add point light. I'm going to add a directional light. And I'm going to drag that into the scene route and attach it. And I'm also going to add a spotlight, which I'll do the same with. There we go. So we have all 3 of these. And if you want the lights to be able to rotate, I'm also going to add a rotating movement, but you don't have to. The variables you're going to need to create in this blueprint will be light intensity, which will be a float. You'll also want a variable called light size, and one more variable called cone radius. And if you have a rotating movement and you want it to rotate, I'm going to do a light rotation rate. And I'm actually going to make that a vector so you can change the rotation rate on each axis. We'll also want to create a variable called in light, which will be a boolean, will check whether the player's inside of a light or not. You're going to want light type. And this one will be enum light types. Now we're going to move on to the construction script. In the construction script, you want to drag off light type. You want to get it. Then you want to switch from light type. Basically, for whatever light type you've selected, for whatever light you've placed down, it will do this for each one of them. So on directional light, we're going to get all three of these. And for the directional light, we're going to select the other two and destroy them. We're going to do this for each of them. So if the light's a point light, we want the directional light and the spotlight. And if the light is a spotlight, we want the point light and the directional light. We'll hook these all up. So if it's a directional, destroy these. If it's a point, destroy these. If it's a spotlight, destroy these. And after this, we want to set all of the properties of the lights to the variables that we've made. So we're actually going to make the default variable for light intensity to 10. We want the light size to be, we'll make it 1000. And the cone radius, I'll make it 20. And I'll keep this 0 because we don't really want it to be spinning by default. So after destroy component, I'm going to drag in the directional light. And I'm going to set intensity to the light intensity. I'm going to do that for each one of these. So set intensity. So this one is going to be the point light. This one is going to be the spotlight. And I'm quickly just going to clean up all of this. Right, now it's all cleaned up. We also want to set the radius for each light, which only applies to these two. So I'm going to copy these. And it's going to be set attention radius. So I'm going to plug that in. Oh. And that's going to be the size. And then I'm just going to copy that for the spotlight as well. There we go. And this one only applies to the spotlight, but we're going to set the outer cone angle to the cone radius. Now, if you want the option to rotate the light, we're also going to get the rotating movement, set rotation rate to the light rotation rate. And I'm actually going to split the struct pin for both and plug them all in, just so I can change these separately. And I'm just going to plug all of these into here. And that's us done with the construction script. Now we can move on to the event graph. From the begin play, what we actually want to do is get a reference to the character. So we're going to cast to BP third person character, or whatever template you've used. From this object, we're going to get player character. Make sure it's this node. And as BP third person character, we're going to right click that and promote that to a variable and just name it character reference. I'm just going to comment that, get character reference. So the way we're going to make this mechanic is we're going to fake the shadows on how they do the damage. We're basically going to use the sun as a gun that constantly shoots the player. You can see this guy, he has all 4 of the cast points and they're all getting hit by the sun, so that means he's fully in the light. Where this guy, he can't get shot by the sun, so he must be inside of a shadow. That's the basics on how it will work. Now with this logic, we can move on to actually creating it in the blueprint. Now inside of the event graph of the light damage blueprint, we're going to do a set timer by event node. Now we're going to use this instead of an event tick because you don't really need to fire this every tick. We're going to do it every 0.1 seconds. And it's going to be looping. And now we're going to create this custom event called cast light beams, which will be our virtual gun that tries to shoot the player. We're gonna do the same thing in the construction script. We're gonna get the light type and we're gonna switch on enum light types. So this is gonna be the logic for each light that we're gonna make. We're gonna start with the directional light. So we're gonna drag off of here and we're gonna do a for each loop. And in this loop, we're gonna get the character reference. And we're going to get all cast points. And we're going to plug that into the array. So for every single one of these cast points, it'll be the object of the array element. In the loop body, we're first going to set in light to false. We're going to assume that the character's in the shadows before anything starts. And then we're going to line trace by channel. And we want the trace channel to be camera, and we're actually going to draw a debug line for duration. This is just to test that it's actually working. You can turn this to none once it actually works. So the endpoint will be array element, get world location, which will be the world location of the current cast point that it's searching for. That'll be the endpoint. Now for the start point, we want to get the directional light, and we want to get its forward vector. This forward vector is where the light is, but it's actually facing the opposite way we want to face it. So we want to multiply it, and we're going to right click this part, and we're going to to float, and we're just going to multiply it by -1, which will reverse its direction. And we're going to multiply this by a big number. We'll take that to a float again, and we can just multiply it by 1 million. Plug that into the start, and let's see if that actually works. Oh, first we want to get rid of this directional light. Put the light damager into the world. Now this light type, we want to set it to directional. Now we can see we have light. I want to rotate it. So now you can see the light. And yep, that's working. So we can go back to the blueprint, and from the line trace channel, we can do break hit result. We can press the drop down. And now from hit actor, we're going to do equals. So basically we're checking whether the thing that the line trace hit is equal to the character. And we're going to get a branch in there. Plug that into here. And that will be the condition. Now if the line trace does hit the player, and it is equal to the character reference, we want to set in light to true. We want to tell the player that it is in the light, and if it's false, it must mean that it's in the shadow. And that's all of the logic for the directional light. I'm going to put that all into a comment. Directional light logic. Once you've cleaned all that up, you can now move on to the point light. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this whole thing and paste it underneath. And I'm just going to change that to point light logic. I'm going to plug point into here. Clean that up a bit. The only thing we need to change for this is the start point. The end point will be the same, the player's location. So the start point for this will actually be the point light. We're going to get the world location. Then we're just going to plug that straight into start point. So it'll go from the point light to the player. However, if we leave it like this, the traces will still happen if we're outside of the radius of the point light. We don't want that to happen, otherwise the player will get damaged even if they're not in the light of the point light. So we can fix that by dragging off the point light, and we want to do get attention radius. And then from one of these world locations, we're going to do distance vector and plug both of them into that. From the return value, you want to type greater than. So if the distance of the player and the point light is greater than the radius, we're going to do a branch. And if that's false, only then we can do the trace. So we can actually give that a test in the game. We can drag in a light damager. And that's a point light, yeah. And I'm going to just turn down the size a little bit and turn up the intensity so you can see it. There we go. Play. Now, see, if I walk into the light, it will only do the traces, but it won't do them if I'm far away from it. Now that's done, we can move on to the spotlight, which is quite a bit harder than the point light, because we need to figure out whether the player's inside of the cone of the point light. So we're going to copy and paste the point light just like last time, and we're going to drag the spotlight into the for each loop. Since the spotlight is a bit more complicated, I'm going to start by making room for all the logic that we're about to add. Just going to move these forward. Now I'm going to just copy and paste this, plug that into the array element, and I'm just going to unplug these for now. And this. So we actually want to plug the start point into where the point light is, where the spotlight is, and the end point into where the player is. Now we need to change this to less equal. There we go. Now we've got whether the player is inside of the size of the spotlight, but now we need to get whether the player is inside of the cone of the spotlight. And the way we can do this is by dragging in the spotlight. We want to get the world location. We want to get the forward vector, the way that the spotlight's facing. We also want to get the outer cone angle. One thing we also want is the player's world location. And what you want to do first is subtract the player's world location with the point light's world location. And from that, you want to normalize it with a normalized node. And the return value, you can type dot product. And from the other node, you want to just plug in the forward vector of the spotlight. And then you need to drag this out and type A cos D. So this is the angle that the player is in degrees from the forward vector of the spotlight. And all we want to do from that is check that whether it's less than or equal to so less equal to the outer cone angle. So if the player's angle is less than the outer cone angle, it must mean they're inside of the cone. So we're gonna hook that up to an AND boolean, and then just plug this part into it as well. So if it's inside of the cone and inside of the size, we can plug that into the branch and test it, and it should work. Set up a point light, and I'm going to play, and it didn't work. Aha, you can see because I need to flip. All I need to do is just flip from false to true because it was doing it when I was in it. There we go. Now it knows when I'm in the point light. Spotlight. Now we have all of the lights set up. We can start with the player taking damage from the lights. So what we're going to do is first I'm going to just disable the debug type on the spotlight, and then I'm going to move to the third person character blueprint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all actors of class, and I'm going to get the actor light damager, and I'm just going to promote that to a variable called light damages. It's just a reference to all of the light damages in the level. So I'm going to start by moving this down, and I'm gonna do a set timer by event. The time will be 0.1, or however frequent you want to check the damage, and it will be looping. So from that we're going to do custom event, and I'm just going to call it check light damage. I'm going to move that to the front and just clean up the node. Now I want to create a variable called any light. I want to create this because I want to check whether the characters is in any light at all. I want to drag off of this, do set any light. We're going to assume that the characters isn't in any light at the start. We're going to do another for each loop, and it will be the light damages. So for each light damager, that will be the object. From the array element, you want to do get in light, and this will be hooked up to a branch. It'll be in the loop body, and if it is in light, then just set any light to true. So that's the logic to determine whether the character is in any light at all. Now before we create the logic for actually taking the damage, I'm going to create one more variable called jump over light. Now this will be for if you want to jump over a shadow and take no damage, or jump over a light and take no damage, or whether you want to be damaged the whole time. So from the completed, I'm going to just drag in a branch, and that'll be light damage. Now if I do want light to damage me, I'm going to do another branch. If I don't, it'll be another branch. Now we're going to set up some logic to determine whether you want to be able to jump over light, or if you want light to damage you, all in one. So we're going to start off with the character movement. Now from the character movement component, you want to get is falling, get the top one. And from this, you want to do a not bool, and then you want to do an and bool. I'm going to move that to the bottom, and I want another not bool, plug that into there, and then get any light. So if there's no light and I'm not falling, or if there is light and I'm not falling, we're going to put that into a select node, and that's going to be whether light damage is true, going to move that backwards a bit because we still got quite a bit more to do. So I'm going to copy this select, and I'm going to plug light damage into the index, and the true will be any light, and the false will be any light with a not ball. And then finally one more select node, which will plug this into the false, this into the true, and the index will be whether you want to jump over light. So if you want to jump over light, it will use these balls, and if you don't want to jump over light, it will use these. And you can just plug the return value into both branches. And then from these branches, if it's true, we can just do apply damage. Oh, wrong apply damage. Do apply damage from the health component. And then I'm just going to keep the damage to 1. And then I can plug both of the trues into there. And let's see if it works. If I want to stay out of light, I'm in the shadow. If I'm in light, get damaged. If I'm in the shadow of here and I'm in the light of here, still get damaged. That's good. I'm going to click 1, so I need to stay out of shadows. So if I'm in this shadow, yep, that still works. And now I'm going to go back into the character, and I'm going to turn jump over light to true. So now I can jump over the light. So stay out of light. And I jump over here. See, I don't take any damage, but if I jump into the light, I do take damage. Now I'm going to switch this to stay out of shadows. Now let's see if I can jump over the shadow. Yep. And if I jump in the shadow, I take damage. Now hopefully you achieved the same result as me. If you had any problems with it or you need any help, just leave a comment. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.